Fashion designers are already shooting next year's collections, but given the current trade climate, this is the first time in 30 years of business Deirdre Quinn is seriously doubting if she can keep her company for another year. Are you confident you'll be around for Resort 2026?
No.
Quinn is co-founder and CEO of Lafayette 148, a luxury label that has become a fixture in the fashion industry, worn by the likes of Julia Roberts, Viola Davis, the former Speaker of the House, and the First Lady. It's a brand now struggling. Despite the rollback on Chinese tariffs, Lafayette 148 is straining under the tariffs still in place. So what do you do? What is your strategy then going forward?
Well, at the moment, it's to speak out.
So far, Quinn has paid some $2.8 million in tariffs this year, paying 30%, while certainly better than the 145% that was previously in place, still means she needs to pay an additional $2.3 million over the next 90 days.
You know, we're in a tough position right now.
Tough because if she were to pass on the current total tariff cost to her customers, a blouse from her collection, currently costing about $600, would be more than $700. It's a shift the entire industry is feeling. The U.S. receives 97% of its clothing and shoes from other countries, primarily China and Vietnam. In Quinn's case, 95% of her products are made in China. Right now, she stays afloat by shipping only what has already sold, without passing the total cost on to her customers. Meanwhile, most of her inventory is still sitting in China.
I can't afford to have my entire cash flow go to the tariffs, and that's what's happening.
Independent jewelry designer Presley Oldham is doing what President Trump has been advocating for. His product is made in the United States.
They're a really beautiful color.
He still needs freshwater pearls, which come primarily from two places in the world, China or Japan. At a recent show, he says retailers from Canada and Mexico who wanted to avoid tariffs refused to buy because he's a U.S.-based designer. How much revenue do you think you've lost so far?
Easily upwards of $40,000. As an entrepreneur, I'm really searching for this sort of ground to stand on right now, and I don't know what that looks like.
Repercussions already being felt on the sales floor at Lafayette 148's boutique in Soho.
Our clients are walking in and asking if we're okay.
What do you tell them?
You're looking for a ray of hope that this is all just a bad dream and it's going to go away.
The real worry is if the tariff nightmare doesn't go away in short order, Deirdre Quinn says her life's work and all she has built may soon be gone. How long do you think, realistically, you can keep doing this?
No, I won't make it to Labor Day.
Won't make it to Labor Day. Thanks so much to Jason Carroll for that report. That, of course, is just a few months away. Paul Hickey and Peter Tuchman are out front. Paul, okay, what I find so powerful about that is extremely high-end brand, obviously. So you see something $600 goes to what, north of $700 with 30% tariff. But this is after Trump slashed. So it went from 145% to 30%. Everyone goes, phew, market goes, phew. But now the reality of that 30% is still devastating.
It's still very high, especially for smaller businesses where they may not be able to eat some of the costs or some of the impact of the tariffs. I mean, the tariffs weren't zero before Trump came in.
Right.
So it's not quite 0 to 30%, but it is, you know, in the clothing business where margins can be so thin as it is, any, increase is going to be impactful, and especially in an economy that's been showing signs of slowdown, it's very difficult on the businesses impacted. There's no denying that.
No, look, I think we were focusing for the last couple of days. We've been talking about GM and Ford and the problems with guidance and about how difficult they're not clear about what they're going to do about tariffs. And they said they're going to have to raise prices for cars. But we started this whole thing when we came on here the first time a few weeks ago when we talked about the stuffed animals. And small business is going to be the biggest one to suffer here. And that is such a lifeblood of the economy. And to think that, how do they make their decisions? decisions. Still, there's not a lot of clarity about what that number is going to be and what their costs are going to be. And their margins are really small, whether it's even, there's some food businesses that in the small business mode, and obviously toys are a big thing. And, I have a friend who runs a caviar business. I know it's a luxury item, but it's the question that they're being forced to make now is how much can they pass on to their customers, or how much do they have to eat? At this point, eat, sort of the strange word, use of words, sorry. Do they stay in business and kind of ride this out? Right, because is it worth eating the cost to stay in business? Because sometimes the margins are just small enough that that's about all they can
In
do.
the case in point, the Russell 2000 today was the weakest of the indices. While the large cap indices were higher, Russell 2000 small caps were weaker. And this is just one area where small businesses have less pricing power, and so it's more impactful.
Right, and you can see that, and obviously, but you looked at this market reaction. Where so the market reaction is as if none of this ever happened, as if we went from 145 back to the way it was before,
right.
Which is not the case, but that is what the market reaction is. So, Paul, this is your whiteboard here tonight. So the S&P coming into the decline was 15%. I mean, that was epic. It was down 15%.
We were down over 15%.
So now I'm just going to go ahead and put a line. We're back to even, right? You have erased that. There are only, here's our next number, there are only 4 years in history where the market has gone from down 15 to flat.
Right.
And one of those years was 1982.
Right.
And I'm just going to put up this name. This will mean something to a lot of people.
Yes.
Paul Volcker was the head of the Federal Reserve. Interest rates at the time were 13%.
Right.
13%.
Right. Yes. So, I mean, the 1982 period is fascinating to look at because when you talk about central bankers, Paul Volcker is considered the gold standard when you look back at it. Back at the time, he was criticized from all angles for what he was doing. Carter, as he was president, called his policy, and Carter appointed him, called his policies ill-advised. Ted Kennedy was calling for an end of the autonomy of the Fed. There was even someone arrested at Capitol Hill with a gun because he was trying to take members of the FOMC hostage because rates were so high. So it was a crazy time.
So maybe you're making us feel better about Trump just saying that we should be getting rid of Powell.
But can you imagine if social media was around then, how crazy it would have been? But getting back to these years. So the years, 1982 is one of them. We had 1970, 2009, and 2020. All years where we had some major problems going on in the economy.
COVID being 2020.
Exactly, financial crisis. And then when we came back, and then we rallied back to even, there was still tons of uncertainty in the markets. People were thinking, okay, this could just go south really quickly again.
Yeah.
But in all those 4 periods, the market ended up, even after that rebound, ended up over the course of the next year trading higher over the next 3, 6, and 12 months, all of those times. So it just goes to show that the market, when as people, our psychology is to get so invested in the day-to-day headlines and make rash decisions. But the economy has been through it all.
Yeah, but think about that. Each one of those cases, you explained to me what happened in '82 about what they had to do with interest rates. Obviously, with COVID, there was a stimulus package that came in that got us to the point where we were.
Yes.
Right? If you think about COVID, right? We came into COVID, they put $3 trillion into the market over 3 months, and we were back to even by August.
Yeah.
But
and
in
so
June
we don't have that happening at this time.
No.
There's no stimulus in the wings to get us out of this situation. Think about that. That was huge. If we did not, we had learned from the problem we had in the great financial crisis, where we put $800 billion into the market over 18 months. It took us 6 years to get back to even. COVID, we put $3 trillion into the market over 3 months. We were back to even in 5 months. We don't have a stimulus package looming here to get us out of this. So right now we're at the crossroads of where are we going to go here? Are we going to stay? Markets are on their highs here. They're acting well, but we just started this conversation with the reality that things are not perfect yet by any means.
No, by no means are they perfect. But in June 2020, in May 2009, we weren't sitting here going, oh, there's a stimulus and the market's going to go up from here. There was still uncertainty in the markets at that time, even after the rebound.
All right. Thank you both very much.